Liz Truss is understood to be planning to borrow billions to limit the expected sharp rise in energy bills for households and firms.
It is understood that a typical energy bill could be capped at around $2,500, with full details expected on Thursday. Currently, a typical household gas and electric bill is due to rise from just under $2,000 to over $3,500 in October.
Yes, well, joining us is our business and economics editor, Halligan. Liam, so just talk us through this, because some of the figures that I've seen, sort of 100 billion, 170 billion even, they're astronomical.
They are big figures. As Anaya said, we are expecting this energy support package to be announced tomorrow. GBNews viewers and listeners will have heard a lot in recent weeks since the new off-gem energy price cap for households was announced, about bills of £3,500, £3,600 a year for the typical household bill. That off-gem energy price cap back in April was more like £2,000, and there was a huge increase. And what I think Liz Truss and Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Business Secretary, and indeed Kwasi Kwarteng, the Chancellor, want to do is to freeze prices at around £2,000 to £2,500 a year. Still eye-wateringly expensive, still a lot more than a couple of years ago for the typical household. But as you say, Mercy, that's going to cost money. Why? Because on wholesale markets, where the energy companies that sell the energy to us buy the energy, prices are escalating. Prices are very, very high, not least due to the ongoing war in Ukraine. So somebody has to buy that energy at those high wholesale gas prices and then sell it at a cheaper price to us so we can afford to pay it. And that means somebody's got to make up the difference. And that somebody is probably going to be the government, which means over a period of time, and it will be over a period of time because these are huge sums, it will be taxpayers.
Well, because on that point, because I have been reading about that, and some people are saying, over 20 years or 10 years or around that. But then ultimately, is it then not really that much support if the taxpayer is still going to have to fit the bill?
Well, it is support, as we say in economics, at the margin. It is support now. If your energy bill is £2,000 a year rather than £3,600 a year, that's more than 200 quid a month, which for a lot of households is, the difference between getting by and, a financial crisis. And the energy support package, only in the last couple of days, and I have ministers start to acknowledge that they have to do something to help business. Big businesses, I think they can largely look after themselves. But I'm talking about small and medium-sized enterprises. Not just pubs and restaurants, though you're right, but manufacturers, these small manufacturers across the Midlands and the Red Wall seats up in the northeast and the northwest. These are major local employers. These are politically extremely significant companies as well. And I'm glad that ministers have said just in the last 24 hours that when this support package is announced tomorrow, there will be business support.
Yeah. Liz Truss has in the past said she's not in favour of another windfall tax. That's something she made clear previously. She is now Prime Minister and is faced with the reality of the situation and having to deal with it. Do you think this is something she's going to consider? Because many people will be quite annoyed and say, hang on, this isn't my fault. Why is the taxpayer having to foot this bill and not energy companies?
It's a tough one. There is already a windfall tax, about £5 billion a year, in addition to what the big energy companies, not the companies that sell us the energy, the companies that drill and mine the energy, operating in the North Sea and elsewhere, they're already being charged an extra £5 billion or so a year on top of the, higher corporation tax and other supplementary taxes that they already pay. The thing is, Mercy, ministers can eyeball the big oil and gas majors and they can say, look, we want you to drill more in the North Sea. But if there's this kind of sword of Damocles, a lot of their profits may be taxed away. They're just going to say, well, look, oil and gas prices are elevated. We operate all over the world. We're just not going to do that. We're not going to invest in the North Sea. We're not going to bring those North Sea fields on stream or generate find new ones if the tax regime, in our view, is punitive. We can go to other parts of the world. So it's egregious for listeners and viewers, but it's a negotiation. These are private sector companies who will say we're already being taxed very, very heavily indeed.
Can I just ask as well, so if she does cap the price, it's effectively you might be able, well, you will be able to use as much energy as you want to and not have to pay for it. So will demand massively increase? And then what will that do to the market?
That's not... I agree with you. If prices are artificially lowered, then you could say, what we call demand destruction wouldn't happen. You won't nag the kids not to spend 20 minutes in the shower and leave the lights on in a way that you otherwise would. Having said that, what's capped, it's important to understand, and I hear a lot of misinformation about this, what's capped is the unit cost, right? That's what's capped. But if you use more units, you still pay more money. And even if the cap comes in, as Anaya said, at £2,500 for the typical bill a year, it's still a huge amount of money compared to where we were, before the pandemic in terms of energy costs. So there will be still some incentives to use less energy, both for households and for businesses, to try and become more efficient, to get rid of that old, very high-intensive energy use machine and buy a new one maybe if you've got the risk appetite for that. So there will still be an incentive to use less energy, but not as sharp an incentive if prices had gone all the way up to an average of £3,500 per household per year.